it is those actions which is putting in the minds of regular Americans across the country, there is no government. And so the federal government can come out and accuse white people of being racist all day and night. They can put in these policies where we see things saying like, if you want to get this job, you can't be white, which we literally just saw in a viral X post. And all that's doing is cracking away at confidence that government actually exists. So there will not be a capability of the 16,000 federal law enforcement agents or whatever to deal with 50 different instances across the country of not even violent riots, quite literally just local militias setting up checkpoints. At that point, they're going to be like, where do we go now to try and stop this? Eventually, more people start breaking away. They say California has not respected the law in 20 years. California says Texas is defying the Supreme Court. Texas says California is defying the Supreme Court. You've got Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland have jurisdictions that have declared themselves two-way sanctuaries and are refusing to enforce state and federal law pertaining to guns. It is just breaking apart very, very slowly. And eventually, it will just be hyper-localized. New York will say, all we can do is New York. The federal government will say, we only have access to certain areas, so let's secure our resources in the areas that matter most. But there's going to be lost areas that are just going to fall into civilian militia control.
Do you want the NYPD data really quick?
Yeah, how many people?
So in 2023, there were just under 34,000 officers. And in 2000, it was at its all-time high with just over 40,000 officers.
Yeah, and I think a third of them are support staff, meaning they don't actually have guns.
And they're reporting that they're well under what they're budgeted for, meaning that they are losing people quickly and they don't have the staff that they theoretically think they need.
I think there's like this fantasy, this technocratic fantasy that one day we'll have enough control of our population that we'll have drone surveillance and militia. Like, yeah, you might have 30 different militias in 30 different places, but we've got the drones. Because right now, like you're saying, the humans can't organizationally handle that kind of breakout, but drones can. But LOL, it's a freaking fantasy, you guys. If the power goes out, first of all. Secondly, you cannot contain local rebellion, not on a mass scale, not a coordinated mass rebellion. So,
but it's not about rebellion. This is I think people assume Hollywood shifts the perspective of people to guns go bang bang and punches go smack smack. They do not make these sounds. It's not about rebellion. Civil war erupts historically in many places when people no longer believe the government exists. Or they, like, we talked about this on the Culture War with the Roman Empire, when we were talking about the history of the Roman Empire. And a lot of people like to say what's happening in the US right now is so much like the Roman Empire. It's the barbarians storming the gates. And then I end up talking to these guys and they're like, which period in the thousands of years of Rome are you talking about? Because people like to mix and match different parts of Rome to make it seem like we're in Rome right now. And it turns out we're actually not. There's similarities to some parts of it, but it's not very much like it at all. Well, what you end up seeing with the fall of the Roman Empire is a guard in the eastern portion, which eventually breaks away into the
Eastern Roman Empire, which became the Byzantine Empire later.
Right. It's because a soldier walks up to someone and says, "I am a soldier," and they go, "Yeah, buddy, get in line like everybody else." And they say, "Did you hear what I said? I am the soldier. I represent Rome." And they go, "Rome who?" And then all of a sudden, it matters not what you think your enforcement is. The way I've described it before is actually much simpler. If you got a knock on your door and you looked in your people and there was a guy in a clown costume and you said, "Can I help you?" And he held up a warrant and said, "I'm from the clown police and you need to open your door," you'd be like, "Okay, buddy, you need to get off my property now or else." Right now, we are in a country where when law enforcement shows up to your house, you recognize the law enforcement. You say, "Okay." Or a lot of people actually now are calling cops. We've seen this with federal law enforcement. It happened in Ohio, a couple of years ago, when an ATF guy showed up to some lady's house. She called the police. The police detained the ATF guy. You get to this point where people laugh and say, when was the last time your agency actually did anything to anybody?